What's up, my dudes? Today we are going to be talking about the snowboard stance. Now, I would love for you to jump in the conversation, whether you're watching this later or live. Jump in the comment section and let's start talking about the snowboard stance. Now, we got a couple things that we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be talking about my snowboard stance. Why? Well, first, how I found it. Two, why I ride the stance that I ride, the pros, the cons, the positives and negatives on it. Also, we're going to be watching a live video that I create, or a video that I created. We're going to watch that, break that down. And then at any point you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely pop in the chat. Let's have a discussion about the snowboard stance. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And if you're new to snowboarding or not sure what the stance is, there's two big things that really comes into mind when you consider creating the most awesome stance. Now, we do have the angles of our binding. So as you see here, the angle of my binding is slightly tilted. As you see this one, there we go. As you see this one, it's slightly angled. So that's going to be one thing to consider, is how much angle should you actually have, as well as what is the width of the stance. Also, so we're going to be chit-chatting about all of that. So we're going to be chatting about that, but if you have any questions like, oh, Tommy, what is my perfect stance? How do I find it? Those kind of things. We're definitely going to be discussing that today. Also, we're going to be watching a video, and as we watch the video, I'm going to pause it and try to discuss some things, but I also don't want to just overdo it because that's really annoying and it's not that awesome. So let's go ahead and watch this video, and while we do that, actually in the background, I'm going to be finding some examples of some stances that are not awesome, and it's going to be great. So it's gonna be great. This is gonna be entertaining. This is gonna be a vibe. So definitely stick around and let's freaking get started. So we're gonna swap over to this one and watch a little video.
Of your bindings and how wide you set them apart is what the snowboard community refers to as the snowboard stance. While your snowboard stance is subjective, in this video I'm gonna give you a guideline to help you get as close as possible to setting up the perfect stance. Now, understand that you may need to adjust your stance based on your equipment, your riding style, conditions, personal preference, skills, pain, or nagging injury. By the end of the video, I'm going to give you a better understanding of how to find the stance and determine exactly what your width and binding angles are. And as a special bonus, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you what my stance is, and I'm going to reveal exactly why I set up my stance the way I do. And again, this video is a guide to help you with your stance. It's not going to be a perfect formula, but it's going to be a guide. So you're definitely going to have to do some experimenting to find that perfect stance. Before diving into the width of our bindings, we first need to set up our angles that are going to most complement our riding style. And the very first style that we're going to break down is going to be freestyle. When it comes to a freestyle setup, traditionally you're going to want more of a duck stance.
So I'm just going to interrupt real quick I love to kind of jump ahead of the kind of the thought process. When it comes to a snowboard stance, my goal is to have one snowboard stance that I ride all the time. So when we're watching this video, I want you to think about, is this stance perfect for me and what I want to accomplish? So we have our angles, we have our width, great. That stuff's really useful, but at the end of the day, your equipment and your stance should elevate the experience of what you're trying to do, which would be essentially like it would be what's the word? It essentially would be like, oh, am I going to be riding moguls? Am I going to be riding steeps? Am I going to be cruising with my father who's 106 years old? Like, what is that thing that you're actually trying to accomplish, and how do we elevate that thing? Does that make sense? So our goal when it comes to the stance is elevating the experience through our equipment. Okay, so we're going to continue on, but that's okay. So like continue on in a second. That's why I love a freestyle stance, because I feel like I'm able to do so much diversity in my riding, in the conditions, in the tricks that I do, and that right there, that stance elevates my snowboard experience. So throughout this deep dive vibe thing that we're doing here, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for.
Duck simply means you have positive angle in the front foot and negative angle.
Yep, I know, blowing it. There we go.
When it comes to
Okay.
a freestyle setup, traditionally you're going to want more of a duck stance. Duck simply means you have a positive angle in the front foot and negative angle in the back foot. This allows for more rotation in the hips as well as range of motion vertically, which is going to be super useful for doing tricks
Can we just address something real quick? Watch this stance.
in the hips as well as range
Or
of
sorry,
motion.
watch this squat. One thing that no one really knows is this is probably, like, no joke, this video that I made was after my first hip surgery, and not even that long after it, where I couldn't even really squat, and that actually hurt a lot. And I do it for the content because I love you guys, but that was like a little inside secret. Hip surgery, my hip is in so much pain right now, that's why I can't get that low. Don't judge me, bro.
Vertically, which is going to be super useful for doing tricks, spins, rails, or having a lot more creative freedom with your body and your board. Now, it's not required to have a symmetrical duck stance, but when it comes to freestyle, I love a symmetrical stance so that it theoretically feels the same whether I'm riding my dominant or
Yes, that was a switch backflip. That was not regular. I am a regular rider. Watch
stance,
this.
so that it theoretically feels the same whether I'm riding my dominant direction or I'm riding switch. In reality, it's not perfectly symmetrical feeling, but that is at least the goal. And the recommended freestyle stance is going to be positive 15 in the front foot, negative 15 in the back foot, or positive 12 and negative 12. And you can obviously play around with that back foot and move it around as needed. This freestyle stance is normally paired with a true twin camber, a directional twin camber, or a hybrid board. Let's move.
Okay, does that make sense? So freestyle, being able to have switch consideration, a big part of how I set up my stance. Do I want to ride switch? And if I can make it as symmetrical as possible, then I'm feeling pretty good.
Move on to a carving specific stance.
Is this you? Are you a carver specific
When
stance?
it comes to carving, yes, you can absolutely carve in a duck stance, but if it's your primary style of riding, you want a stance to complement that, and I suggest going positive in the front foot and positive in the back foot. This is also known as a posy-posy stance. The benefits of having a posy-posy stance is it allows...
This is for demonstration purposes only of a really aggressive carve, but this gentleman right here, his name is Ryan Napton. He is not riding... He is not riding in a, he's not a posy rider. I think there was a bit of like my bad on that because I definitely like messed it up a little bit. Ooh. Cool.
Allows you to get more board control when carving, having more power put into your board while carving, as well as getting a significant more amount of tilt in your body so you can lay down some super awesome carves. A recommended posy stance for carving is going to be
Oh,
30 in the
that's
front foot,
why.
positive 15 in the back foot. And the recommended carving board to pair with this stance is going to be a directional board, a directional twin, or an alpine racing board. And I definitely suggest to use camber if you're trying to maximize the performance out of this style of riding.
So great. So we've covered essentially the freestyle setup, which is going to be a bit more like switch, regular, symmetrical. Yes, you can do tricks, but you don't always have to, but it's going to be very versatile. I personally like that a lot. Now, when it comes to like carving only, great. That's also going to be like another thing to consider is like a posy stance. And then I will chat with you guys here in a little bit. I appreciate all you guys like Steven and Bree and everyone being in the chat. So we'll chat after here in a little bit. But I just wanted to jump into the content right away. All right, let's keep it going and switch back over.
Now let's dive into a all mountain snowboard stance. If you're trying to attack the mountain, you're going to need a stance that is versatile and adaptable to all sorts of conditions, speed, and terrain. This stance could have a carving or freestyle influence based on what you want. A recommended stance for all mountain with a little bit more of a carving bias is going to be positive 15 in the front foot and either 0 or 3 degrees in the back foot. And a all mountain freestyle setup, I suggest having positive 15 in the front foot, and you can go minus 6, 9, 12, or 15 in the back foot You can also do a 12-degree positive angle in the front foot and also pair it with a 6, 9, or 12 in the back. Again, personal preference. With this kind of riding, I would definitely lean towards a true twin camber or a directional twin camber or a directional camber board. And for you powder riders out there, you have a few different options for stance, but the goal is to have a stance that allows the nose of the board to float while having the ability to make an array of turn shapes and sizes. When setting up your stance, you may shift your bindings back to apply more pressure to the tail, helping the nose of the board stay afloat. This is commonly known as a setback, where you're no longer centering your board, but you favor your tail. This setback can be determined by the board you have, the angle of the slope, and the amount of snow, but traditionally you can set back between 1 and 3 inches. The recommended stance for this, if you have more of a free ride, is going to be positive 15 in the front foot and something around 0, 3, or 6 in the back foot. If you're more of a freestyle, then you may want to try a positive 12, negative 12, or positive 15, negative 15, and obviously consider having that setback. This stance is normally paired with a directional twin, hybrid, or reverse camber board. And definitely stay to the end, because I'm going to tell you exactly what stance I have and why I ride camber in POW/never change my setup. Ever. Future Tommy here.
All right, there we go. What's up, dudes? Okay, I just absolutely just dropped my phone. But so with that said, we've got a couple of different options when it comes to the setup. You want to pair your setup of your snowboard with the elevated experience, right? So within that video so far, we've talked about what are some complementary stances for what you're going for. Not necessarily like, oh, I want to change my stance if I need to go carving. Oh, I need to go change my stance if I'm riding POW. The goal is to find, in my opinion, this is like, again, goes back to personal preference, but my opinion is trying to find the one stance that I can do anything and everything at all times. And if I'm going to Japan to go ride some of the craziest POW, what I don't want to do, and here's like a realistic drawback of changing your stance all the time, is I'm going to go to Japan, spend thousands of dollars, hours of traveling, and now my stance just feels weird. So I take my first run and I just don't feel comfortable. Well, there's like 18 inches of powder. I'm with my friends. I'm trying to send it, trying to have a good day, trying to maximize like everything, the experience, and blah, blah, blah. And I just feel uncomfortable, right? That's the essentially the feeling that I'm trying to avoid by setting up my stance the way I do and keeping it for as long as possible. A little bit later in the video, we'll talk about how we find our stance, as well as how, this isn't in the video, but like how often should we change our stance? Now, I know a professional snowboarder. The dude does like 1900s. He does in X Games. Every year he changes his stance because he worked out in the summer and his body may change. So he'll change his stance to make it like the most optimal stance. But this is the guy who rides boots, brand new boots, every 2 weeks because he needs the absolute maximum amount of performance. And on a new boot, you're going to get the most amount of response. As the boot starts to get worn down, you're losing 5, 10, 15, 20% of response. He gets a brand new pair of boots, blah, blah, blah. So then he's changing his stance every year. I personally change my stance when my body changes significantly enough or it just doesn't feel comfortable anymore. But with that said, I've been on the same stance for 10 years. My body, I'm like, okay, I feel really good. So I feel really good. Okay, cool, I'm gonna keep the stance. It does everything that I needed to do and accomplish, so I'm good on my stance. But I was actually at the gym today thinking about it. I kind of feel like I need to push my stance like a little bit wider because when I do like well, for the gym, if I do like a normal snowboard stance with squat, weight on the back, it hurts my hip. But if I get my hips and foot just a little bit wider, I literally don't feel the pain. Maybe it's like a slight pain versus a significant pain. And I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder if I should change that to my snowboard stance by moving it out a little bit. So then I was like, okay, well, I haven't changed my stance in 10 years. Now I feel like there may be a benefit to change my stance based on having 2 hip surgeries. So just a little bit of context of that. Now we're gonna dive back into the video. We're gonna be discussing, I believe, some stuff about the actual setup, the actual bindings and stuff.
I want to talk about a couple things to know when setting up your bindings. And first, let's start with the base plate. This piece of plastic right here, traditionally it's going to be removable. This piece of plastic is called your base plate. And when you change your angles, you have these little notches so you can like lift up and move it a little bit. It's gonna move in increments of 3 degrees. So the Burton cartels that I have here, they go from 0, 9, and 18 as far as markings, but there's little notches in between. So you're making a 3-degree jump. Another thing to note is that there's a bunch of different patterns on this hole, this base plate. So I could use this base plate on a 4 traditional hole board instead of the channel system, but I could also use the channel system. Another thing to note is that I don't necessarily want to be toe heavy or super heel heavy. What I do want to be is as centered as possible. So I actually, instead of setting up the board with like this top hole, I'm actually going to go here, allowing the bindings to shift forward just a little bit so that I don't have any heel side or toe side drag, or heel or toe drag, because I definitely don't want that. Another thing that when I'm setting these up, I love to try to find the holes and try to set them up. And then just note, am I going in the right direction, right? Sometimes it's really easy for us just to accidentally be in the wrong direction, or we have negative angle on our front foot, which could not be awesome. So I like to just, create the angle. I'll like change this to whatever angle this is, and I'll just try to set this up. Okay, cool, I gotta move this. And if I go in this direction, oh, I notice that it's wrong, so I'm not fully committed. So I'll actually just double check that, make sure I'm going in the right direction. Obviously, and this happens to the best of us, make sure that your ratchet straps are towards the tip of the board, because sometimes it's easy for us to have them on the wrong foot, and then you've set up your bindings wrong. So when setting up bindings, definitely want the ratchet towards the tip, or the ratchet, these ratchets right here, towards the tail.
Oh, I love that question. What snowboard stance are you all riding? Question mark. Pop them in the chat and tell me why you are set up the way you are set up. You positive, negative, why, what are you doing, and what like experience you're trying to elevate. It could be quick. I'd love to just kind of get a general idea of what you guys are all riding.
And another awesome tip for when you're actually mounting your bindings, I'd like to get one bolt started and then get it so it has a little bit of bite, but I'm not gonna crank down just one, because it might actually mess up your angles or mess up how it sits, connects to the board. So I would definitely like screw this one in a little bit and then go to this one, make this one a little bit tighter so that they're actually going down pretty close, like at the same amount of force. And then I just keep going back and forth, a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter. And if you're using a 4-bolt system, and then I would do that in a star format so that you're always going in like a crisscross pattern instead of just locking one down. That was a big issue a lot of people have, is they'll just tighten one down and then the other 4 or other 3 screws don't actually line up. So just do small increments and then tighten it all the way down at the end. I am a big fan of getting these pretty tight, but I don't want to overly tight it, but give it a nice little elbow grease. Get there, make sure it's tight, because I obviously don't want to be slipping, and I'll make sure it's tight, go back through, check it again, make sure it's tight. That's pretty good. Move it to this one, verify, cool. And then I'm locked and loaded. All right, let's keep going. Now you have all this information that's gonna help you set up your angles that are best gonna complement your riding style, but also understand that you can change your stance based on the conditions, your riding style, or even how you're feeling. Now, let's dive into how we determined our width, but first, how the heck do we measure our width?
Cool. So we got a lot of nerds so far. Just to like generally recap, what we're going to be doing with our snowboard stance is trying to find a stance that's going to elevate our experience. Now there is going to be some general ideas, as you've seen in the video, that there's general ideas of how to actually find a stance that complements your riding, but you're also going to notice that there's an asterisk of, oh, you could do this or this or this, and there is something that you got to consider, and that is the anatomy of the human body. No. So I have like dude bro here, and I literally glued his foot back together, but he absolutely decided not to. So a couple things that we have when we have like a snowboard stance. What is the natural rotation or natural angle of your femur? Now, sometimes your femur and your kneecap are pointed straight, but some people have their femurs that are maybe rotated out a little bit, maybe 3 degrees, 4 degrees, maybe even 10 degrees, right? So then when your hip is actually rotated out and then you put your stance narrow, you feel a lot of tension in your legs. Also, your knees don't move in the same way, which could cause your knees to be pretty cranky. So then as you are in like, oh, okay, I'm in a directional stance and my back foot always feels weird. Well, maybe because the hip angle out of your femur, it's not necessarily being supported by the stance angle or the back binding angle. Does that make sense? So then we have like, okay, we have like, how do we elevate our snowboard experience? What are the things that we're actually trying to do while we're riding? How do we maximize our range of motion? And how do we maximize, and that's something that we probably didn't really talk about, but I want to talk about here in a second, range of motion and performance. And then we also have to be comfortable, right? We can have the most awesome, perfect, optimized stance, and if it's uncomfortable, then you don't want to snowboard. So then like, what are we really doing, right? So there is a point where you do have to, as Butch just say that yes, experiment and play around with the stance angles. Yeah, you gotta experiment a little bit. And what I usually do is like when I was going through the snowboard stance process, I would just put a snowboard tool in my pocket. There's some out there that are super lightweight. You won't even notice it, super safe if you fall. And then you just have it in your pocket, like not a big deal. The other thing to consider when you are doing your stance is you are trying to find a stance that is going to allow you to have the most amount of range of motion. So I'm actually gonna see if I could do this real quick while we're live. Oh, I can just do this. I'm gonna copy and paste. So I wanted to look at this video specifically. And let's see if we can just make sure it's popped up on the monitor. Oh yeah, let's go. So big shout out to this Instagram account. This is called Jerry's of Bear Mountain. He's actually my friend. He runs the account. Big shout out to the homie. But we're going to see. Oh yeah, okay, so you can see. Okay, I just want to make sure y'all can see that. Oh, go. Okay, where is it? Hold on. Please be patient. That's so weird. Okay, there we go. So this is a stance that is less amazing. So check this out. Watch, this is dramatic though. This is dramatic. Okay, we might not be able to see it correctly. So let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, and I'm gonna move this screen up just a little bit. Oh, over here. Sorry for the notifications. So do you see how wide this stance is? Let's play it one more time. So what ends up making this stance really challenging is there's limited range of motion vertically, meaning being able to handle the terrain, being able to handle bumps, be able to bend the knees and go up and down, which is gonna be extremely useful for making your turns, for riding different terrain, for just staying balanced and comfortable, okay? So having a too wide of a stance is extremely, it's such an extreme disadvantage because it just makes things harder. If you watch this turn, every time she goes from her toes to her heels, and then her heels right here to the next turn, she actually has to take her back foot and swing it around, which makes this really hard. Now, I am not making fun of this person. We're just objectively looking at this stance that just makes snowboarding harder than it really should be. Does it make sense? Now, does this stance work? Yes, we could argue that this person has an effective stance, meaning they're able to go from the top of the mountain to the bottom. But it is as awesome as possible? I'm gonna have to say no. I think there's some major benefit that could help from this rider bringing their stance in. Okay, cool. Now what happens if we don't necessarily have one queued up or anything, but what happens if we have a stance that is... What happens if we have a stance that is too narrow, okay? So if we have a stance that is too narrow, then essentially you're going to maybe get more range of motion, but now you limit your balance left and right. So if I'm like a tree and my roots are super narrow, well then it's easy for my tree to fall over. But if my roots are wider to a point, it's gonna be super productive in this analogy, right? Too wide, not productive. Too narrow, not productive. We do have to find this like little honeymoon? What is it called? Goldilocks kind of zone? Goldilocks zone, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so let's continue on.
Measuring your bindings, you want to start from your lead binding, and you're going to measure from the very center of the base plate, and then just stretch out the tape measure, whatever you're measuring with, to the center of the other plate. This
Big thing to know on how to measure your stance, because there could be some discrepancy here.
is going to be your stance width, and the best part is as your angles change, the center never moves, so you're going to have an accurate measurement. Things to consider when you're setting
That was a really good demonstration. Big shout out to the boy.
up the width. We're trying to find the balance of feeling and function. Of course, we want to be explosive, have full range of motion, be able to go forward, backwards, toe side, heel side, but we want to be able to perform all of that while being pain-free and, of course, comfortable. You also have the option of making a super wide stance, and the benefit would be more balance but less range of motion. You can go super narrow, which is going to make it a lot more nimble, especially for rail riders, but you may not have that versatility when riding off-piste terrain. So I personally like setting up a stance that's going to favor the middle, allowing me to have great range of motion, agility, as well as balance. Before we go through a couple different exercises, I suggest grabbing a pen, a paper, or something to take some notes on, and of course you're going to need a tape measure. Now we're going to go through a couple different exercises, and some are super awesome and some are less awesome, but I recommend going through all of those and trying to determine the average of all of these exercises so that we can closely get to that perfect stance.
So, more of the story that we're going to do a couple different examples of different exercises to find your stance with, and some of them are going to be accurate. Some of them I think are absolutely not good, but some are.
And also, as a little asterisk, at the end of the day, you're going to have to experiment with different stances on hill. So I definitely recommend having a snowboard tool in your pocket so you can easily change that anytime. I'll link my favorite snowboard tool down below. First, we're going to start with a basic squat exercise. Now get into your classic athletic position, but make it slightly more narrow. Perform 1 to 3 squats, and on the final squat, go ahead and move your stance a width wider and repeat up to 5 times. Here, you're going to find which one feels the most comfortable, both in your range of motion and how much impingement you may feel in your hip.
Another thing to consider when like doing this squat is, and I forget if I talked about this because this video is it wasn't made yesterday. So when you're doing this squat, you want to have your knees track over your toes. So my knee here is essentially going over the toe, and that is going to be your most biomechanically optimized position. Meaning that is how your knee is designed. If your knee is folding in or your knee is folding out, you're going to be subjective to a vulnerable state, especially when you're going to go riding really fast and hit like a big landing, hit moguls, or hit something that's like a big impact. That's where a lot of snowboarders like hurt their knees because their knees aren't in a biomechanically good position. I used to dislocate my knee when I was younger because I always had a bad stance and bad body position. So now when I'm hitting jumps, hitting rails, landing flat, I'm constantly thinking, okay, as I land, I want to make sure my knees track over my toes so that I'm protecting my knees from getting blown. Plus, I increase my range of motion, meaning I have a better chance of actually landing whatever that was because I have a larger range of motion. Imagine your shocks in your car only have like 1 inch versus like 18 inches of range of motion. It's going to be a very different experience in the car, right? So that's some things to consider when you're setting up your stance, especially doing it this way. And I totally forget if I mentioned this. I would recommend setting up a video camera and filming yourself. That could just be your phone, could have your SO, your significant other, film you. But with that, then you can start noticing these things. How does it feel? But also, how does it look? Because I may not be able to tell if my knees are tracking over my toes in a biomechanically correct position. And let me unmute this.
Comfortable both in your range of motion and how much impingement you may feel in your hip. The goal is to find a stance that feels comfortable. definitely make sure you measure this out, and you may need some chalk to make this a little bit easier. This next way to find your stance, we're going to grab your snowboard and we're going to try to find the reference. Essentially, when you buy a snowboard, there's going to be a part, an indicator on the board for a reference. This indicates where the center is usually, or a setback, but it's going to tell you where it suggests you should put your bindings. Now the challenge here is it's obviously not taking into consideration your height, your width, or your riding style, but it's a great place to start. And on these boards, like the Burton that I'm riding, it has these little mountain peaks, and it's a 1/2 inch marker, so I actually don't need a measuring tape. I know I can move a 1/2 inch. Next is called the drop test. Find something about 1 to 2 feet off of the ground, and the goal is to jump into an athletic position and absorb the impact. Perform this drill 3 times while measuring your landing position. This is a super common drill, but I'm not the biggest fan because I find that this landing position could be inconsistent, but your results may vary. The next exercise is also another fun one. It's called the jump test. Essentially, you're going to close your eyes. And with that said, make sure you look around. There's nothing dangerous or hazardous. And you're going to jump 5 times with your eyes closed. And every time you land, try to absorb the impact. Now you're trying to find a stance that is the most comfortable and strong with your eyes closed. So definitely feel this drill as much as you can. On the last jump, stay there, open your eyes and measure your feet and see what your stance is. Again, this drill is commonly used. I find it to be a bit inconsistent, but you may have better results than I do. This next drill, even though it's not a drill, is my favorite. What you're gonna do is measure from the bottom of your foot with your shoe off, measure the length of your leg to the top of your knee. This is going to give you a pretty close estimate of what your stance could be. Personally, I find this to be about 3/4 inch short, but a really good starting place. This last exercise is by far my favorite, but could be the most subjective and possibly the most frustrating or time consuming. What you're going to do is gather all of the data.
Such a nerd.
From the drills that you've done beforehand, and you're going to determine a range of which you think.
Okay, did you guys see this? How funny is this? Okay, so these are 3D printed sunglasses, and they have, I'm missing a temple on the right side, so watch, this is funny, okay? Because they're like samples. Oh! I literally drop him, caught him like an absolute freaking legend. How funny is that? Oh, freaking rolling.
Going to be most appropriate, and you're going to determine a range of which you think is going to be most appropriate. It should not be 10 inches difference, should just be a little range. And then you're going to find one of the longest runs that you can find, and you're going to ride that same run 3 times and try to do the exact same turns, same areas, same bumps, same tricks, same jumps, and then change your stance just a little bit. I'm a big fan of the Burton channel system because I can change that stance by a millimeter at a time effortlessly without pulling the bindings off and having to work too hard. You can do the little slidey thing pretty easily. With this said, yes, it's going to take a lot of time, but once you determine your perfect stance, awesome. 2 things you can do with that. Take notes, put notes in your phone or glue them to your refrigerator. But the other thing that you can do is grab a marker and trace your bindings. So if you ever take your bindings off, whether you're waxing your board or you're changing your setup, that you have your reference and you just know what it is at all times. So obviously that's going to be the most subjective, but my goal is for you to find a stance that is the most explosive, most powerful, most balanced, and most comfort so that you can literally have a stance that complements your riding and you can ride all day. Now let's break down my stance, but first I'm 5'5" and 140 pounds. I primarily ride big jumps, love freestyle, love going fast, carving, and just trying to handle any.
And just so you know, like, Durple, I'm gonna jump in the chat here. This video is almost over. We could talk about it. I'm gonna be able to answer all your questions. So definitely pop them in, and I'll answer as much as possible. This video is almost done, but just wanted to continue going on.
Anything I throw at my board or my body, so I want a stance that is as versatile as possible. So I am going to be a duck stance. So I have positive 15 in my front foot, negative 15 in my back foot, and I'm 20 3/4 inches wide in my stance. I also really love having just one setup, so I love camber snowboards. I have a 7 out of 10 flex on this Burton Blossom. Extremely stoked on true twin cambers. I want it to feel as symmetrical as possible. I also just love having one setup and never changing my binding angles, because I would rather develop my skills, body positions on something familiar so that I can just work on myself. I don't like having to constantly adjust and adapt and adjust and adapt, but I also spent years and years and years and years and years determining what my width and angles are. And sometimes it won't feel right, I'll make small adjustments, but as much as I can, I keep the same stance. I also went to Japan and rode a gnarly amount of POW, but I ended up keeping my same exact stance because I wanted to be able to ride switch, do tricks, 360s, 540s, all that stuff. But I also wanted a stance slash board setup that could handle the gnarly chop. Now, let's be realistic here. First, 1, 2, 3, 4 runs of the day, super sick powder. In Japan, the snow is super fluffy and light, so you're not having to actually have a super like reverse camber or a super like powder board. I was literally riding like some mellow terrain in 18 inches of POW just fine because the conditions there favorite. But after 3 runs, it's super choppy and gnarly. So if I had something that had 0 tail, I had something that had a big nose, but it was reverse camber, I felt like I would only be good for 3 runs. Well, I want to have the sickest day ever in the entire day. So I would end up just riding a camber board and then charging through the chunder and gnarly like little goat trails everywhere. So I definitely love just having the same setup every day. You literally see me wherever I'm riding, you'll always be on a camber snowboard. Like, freaking love it. And with that said, let me know down in the comments below if I missed anything, you agree, disagree, or I gotta add something, because my goal is to make you as awesome as possible at snowboarding. And definitely put your post notifications on, because we do a bunch of fun giveaways. We're also doing lives.
Boom. And that is going to be that video. Follow, subscribe. So let's go into a couple of your questions that we have about snowboard stance. And again, my stance was positive 15, negative 15, and about 20 inches and 3/4 wide. So jumping back into some of the questions, appreciate you all coming in. We got questions, pop them in. Let's make this interactive as much as possible because I want to make this fun for you. So let's pop in and get some questions going. Now, is 30-30 a duck right? A tall snowboarder? Yeah, it's definitely a duck, but a lot of times when you go too far out of that 21 degrees or more, your stance becomes so much like this that it becomes less balanced. So there is a kind of cap on how much angle you can go, because like you want to try to find something that's like super versatile. Slava, what up, dog? How we doing? Proxy, what up, dog? Riding 15.9 at the moment. Love it. What do I think of the Burton Cartels? Super awesome. Big fan of the Burton Cartels. They've been really good. Jose, what up, dog? Appreciate you being in here. My dude, you're 1212. Let's go. Justin, what up, dog? Let's see what else we got in here. Let's see, just going in. Let's see, Zoak. Yo, congrats on 160K, dude. I appreciate it. It's crazy because like YouTube grows the slowest for me. And like this year, I've grown like 85K on Instagram and 75K on TikTok, and I've probably grown like 15K, 15, like maybe 12K on YouTube, which is crazy. Let's see what else we got. B, what up? You say 15-15 binding degrees, a good natural stance. I like 15-15 for me. I think it's a pretty good happy medium. It's not necessarily too angled or too narrow. I'm a pretty big fan of it. So I think that's a pretty good starting point for most people, especially if you're going to have any interest in riding switch. Let's see. Dirtball, I got a question. I want to snowboard because, you want to buy a snowboard because you've been renting and just got into it, and I want to be good. It be good for carving and tricks, but don't want to get tons of POW where I live. What do I get? 2 big things that I would absolutely recommend that you do is check out some of the other YouTubers for videos on snowboards specifically. You can type in best free ride snowboard review, best carving board review. You're gonna get like those, and there could be like, I know Angry Snowboarder does like top 5 big mountain boards, top 5 free ride boards, those kind of things, top 5 freestyle boards, top 5 beginner boards. He does a bunch of those, and there's going to be a great start. But number 2, and my best recommendation that I think is the most effective to buying the best board is to go ride the board. Now, there's going to be a lot of general rules, such as, should I get camber? Should I get reverse camber? Should I get hybrid? What should I do? Those things are going to help you identify kind of the performance the board elevates or requires. But when you demo a board, you're going to be able to feel it. Big shout out to my wife. She bought me a brand new snowboard years and years and years ago. She bought me a brand new snowboard. I rode it, hated it day one. And I was like pretty honest. I was like, hey, this, like, I'm sorry, this board is not for me. And I like tried my best. I ended up like riding like 30 days on this board. And by the end of the 30 days, I was like, this thing's not for me. So then I ended up selling it, buying one. And then the very first day I rode that new board, loved it. So I think for like a situation with like a significant other, and by the way, Natalie has never bought me a snowboard again, which totally makes sense. But I was like, if you're going to do something like that, I would say just like give me a gift card or like give me cash or like something that I can put towards that. But like as a snowboarder, like I'm looking for a specific performance out of my board. And when I ride something that's not that, then it's not good, right? So that's what I would do is I would go to a snowboard shop and go demo a board. Most times you can go to a shop, you can actually theoretically ride that snowboard, and it might cost you $50. And then you're like, oh, I love this board or I hate this board. Then you're going to be able to find out. From there, then that $50 usually goes towards the price of the purchase of the board. So it's not like you just spent an extra $50. If you bought that board from that shop, usually that $50 goes towards the purchase. And then at least you know whether that snowboard is like the absolute best board or not. Because I know plenty of people are like, oh, I just spent $600 on a board and I hate it. Well, that sucks, right? It's not awesome. Does that make sense? Going to Japan next week for the first time. I'm an advanced rider, not expert, and not very familiar with POW. Any tips? Appreciate your content. Bruno, let's go. Dude, that's freaking incredible. As far as like the content, as far as the suggestion, two big things I would say is as you're riding, just make sure that you're reading the terrain and being able to anticipate as much as you can. Because like I've been to Japan, you'll be riding, it's steep, and all of a sudden it gets flat and there's 18 inches of POW and now I'm stuck because I didn't pay attention to like keeping my momentum. That doesn't really happen often to me, but that's like a real world situation. So that's like number one. And then number two is really trying to find the balance point of like, how much do you lean back? Because if your board is flat and you're on like, let's just say your board, like the slope is this and you're parallel. Well, then the nose could go down, which is going to cause you to possibly tomahawk sometimes not. But you're going to like have too much resistance and you're going to slow down. And then you want your nose to be up enough where you're like floating on top. But if you have your nose too much up, then you're actually going to slow down. Then you're going to get stuck. So it's a fine balance, but that's going to come with time. And then I think you're just going to have the freaking sickest time ever in Japan, dude. Congratulations. That's super exciting. How does carving feel in 15-15? For me personally, I do a bunch of carving. 15-15, I'm a big fan of it because I can still get really aggressive edges and then I can do a 180 and do the carve switch. So for me, it's awesome. I don't necessarily notice like the most negative, or what's it called? Like I haven't noticed a disadvantage by riding 15-15. Only because I do so many other things. But I if you've seen my videos, I definitely carve. I'm not the best carver in the world by any means, but I'm definitely like above average with that, and even having that stance. Dirtball, what up, dog? What up, dog? Dirtball also asked about like what is reverse camber. So reverse camber or rocker essentially is, imagine you had like your snowboard and it was like this. So then when it sits on a flat surface, that it's all up like this. So then it has like a center pivot point where like a normal snowboard is more like this. And so then when you apply pressure onto it, notice that it wants to spring back into play, where if it's like this, it doesn't have the same performance. A lot of times this is really good for beginners, or this is really good for somebody who's only riding rails and trying to do presses. But as you start to go faster, it's not as good. 8K, what up, dog? Been doing 15-15. I watched your video last year. Great handling black diamonds. And when I had to ride switch to slow down, I'm trying to hit jumps and master carving. You recommend for angles wise? If you're trying to master jumps and carving, I would stick with 15-15. If you're gonna do jumps, theoretically, eventually you're gonna do 180s, which means you're gonna wanna have a favorable stance for riding switch. Now, if you're simply isolating a carving and becoming a master at carving, then I would suggest doing positive in the front foot and positive in the back foot, and then you can determine how much of that back foot needs positive angle through this video and through the experience. But all in all, I would say that if you're trying to have a versatile setup, recommend sticking with 15-15. Steven, what up? Thank you for the great tutorial videos. I was snowboarding in December and decided to learn carving and went okay-ish. I took a pretty epic crash, dang it. My friend told me that it looked hilarious, bruised a rib. And I can't wait to go snowboarding again. Dude, well, sick job for like going riding, having fun, and trying to learn something new. I would say when you're making crashes, a lot of times it's because you're in the wrong body position at the wrong time. I do have videos on carving. I would definitely refresh on those, but and at the same time, one thing that most people don't really understand when it comes to snowboarding is it's considered an extreme sport. This thing is gnarly. Thanks for answering all the questions. Let's go, dude. Stoked you're here. Danielle, what angle stance would you recommend for all mountain carving without riding switch? I would say something around like 12 in the front foot and possibly 0 in the back, or right around that angle. I would say that's going to be like a really good starting point. And now if you're feeling like I need a little bit more on that back foot, I need a little bit more out because maybe it hurts or my hips feel weird, you could do that, or bring that back foot in. But I would start at like 12 in the front foot and 5 in the back. We got Joe Gunn! What up, dog? Thanks for wiping out the majority of the birds at Copper. No bird doo-doo on my forerunner anymore. See you at Thursday. Ski Cooper with the Angry Squad, ? I'm like, if I'm in town, I'm going. That's like, I told Angry Snowboarder, I was like, dude, like, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm like an extreme, like, introverted person, and I would rather talk to a camera than talk to like a human being. So like, I told Angry Snowboarder, I was like, I'm working on it. We're gonna try to be a better human being, and I'm down to go as long as I'm in town. And usually, last year it fell on my girl's birthday, but I don't think it falls on this year. So Joe Gunn, I'm gonna say like, as long as I'm in town, I'm down. And I'll probably ride a half day because like most of the times like my hips like freaking destroyed. We actually had Seth in here as how's the hip these days, my dude. All right, for those who don't know, I've had 2 hip surgeries. Not that it was actually not from it was and it wasn't. I had hip surgery because I had like busted my hip doing a trick on a snowboard, and I landed the trick, never fell, but I had like a deformity in my hip which caused a torn labrum. So it would have happened eventually, whether it was snowboarding or not. Somebody online the other day was trying to roast me, which I don't get a lot of people roasting me, but he was trying to roast me. Oh, should we do that? You guys want to see the savage comment that I had like wrote back to this dude the other day or this morning? It was so funny. But so this guy's like, oh yeah, you're snowboarding like, you got hurt, you're a bad snowboarder, and you got hurt because you're a bad snowboarder. And I was like, actually, that's like not true. I landed the trick. Like, bro, like I haven't gotten hurt in years, even though I'm like hurt every day, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Peter, what up? Can you translate that, my dude? I don't understand any of that, sorry. But if you translate that, we could probably figure it out. If you like copy and paste, translate or something, that'd be super cool. Joe, you just redacted something, so I don't catch what you say, but yeah. Amateur Snowboarder, what up? Oh, okay, appreciate that. With a $5 donation. Appreciate you, big dog. I'm the same way. Yeah, Joe, let's go. Okay, oh wait, is it possible to adjust the Highback to different angles? I'm gonna make a separate video on that at some point. On like forward lean. So those that don't know, the angle of your Highback, so let's just like kind of go from the basics. I don't know what you know or don't know. This is called your Highback, and then when you have your Highback has like an angle like this, it's called forward lean. Now when you have forward lean, it can be extremely beneficial for 2 big reasons. One, it will force you to bend your knees. So if you're the kind of snowboarder that's always locked out, really tall and locked out and doesn't have much performance, this right here will force you to bend your knees. The other cool thing about this is when you have your boot in here and you barely apply pressure to the Highback because there's so much forward lean, you're essentially preloading your board and binding and boot to have higher response, okay? So as soon as I press here, boom, the whole thing moves. Now imagine and I'm gonna turn this a little bit. Imagine you had your binding set back here, and now my boot rests like a little bit in front, okay? So now when I try to make a turn, I now have to move my boot from this far away, exaggerating demonstration purposes only, from this far away. Now I have to move, touch, then get a little bit of responsiveness. So that's where a lot of people recommend forward lean for those two big reasons, which is going to keep your knees bent and get responsiveness. Now, for me personally, I actually absolutely have the zero amount or the least amount of forward lean possible. Because when I have a little bit of range going from my boot, and let's say that I'm like a ½ inch off and I like completely like mess up my body positions, well, guess what? I don't get a response on the board, which means I don't have response from the board that may cause problems. So then my body kinesthetically knows and feels that if I'm intentionally making a turn, I gotta go a little bit more to find that performance. And for me, I'm okay with that because I have a little bit more range of motion or range or room for error because I'm not a perfect snowboarder. Sometimes I'm like, I kind of went on a rail and I'm a little backseat, but because I'm a backseat, I actually didn't crash for that. So I tried to have absolutely the least amount of forward lean possible. Like I'm a 100 big fan of that, especially when I'm riding boxes, rails, and then obviously if you like for example, like I obviously am like, I can still like, even though I talk about complaining about my hip all the time, I still have like, I can still do tricks. I could still do a back 7. I could still do like an underflip. Where is this? Where's my profile? There's like tricks like this that I can still do. That's awkward. So like a trick like this, I'm still performing an underflip. This is called an underflip. So it's where you do a 90 degrees flip 90 degrees, right? So even though I have that stance that has a little bit more room for error, I can still get the performance out of my body and board I want. But again, just have a little bit more room for error. I was gonna let this recycle and still be able to get the performance that I want based on my equipment, if that makes sense. I'm going snowboarding for the second time on Friday. Can't wait. I'm gonna learn toes side this time. It says hands. Let's go, dude. Hans, I would say check out, I got a YouTube channel full of like stuff. You just type in Tommy Bennett toe side, you'll find something. I'm also gonna be posting a toe side slip video coming up, I think tomorrow. Yeah, I'm gonna be posting something like tomorrow that I think is gonna be pretty good. Brian, okay, here's an interesting one. Ooh, okay, hold on real quick. Brian, we got a little something for you. Let's try this. Now, let's see if we can find this real quick. Heel, and we got a good discussion of heel lift. Heel. Okay. If you all don't mind, let's like address this question of heel lift. And I think this is extremely important for a lot of people to see. As far as heel lift, there's something that like we gotta really address. Now, to be clear, I'm a lot bit opinionated when it comes to heel lift. And I think 99% of heel lift comes from one thing. And that's what we're gonna watch this video just so we have some context of what I'm saying. I had so much, my boots were so loose that I literally jumped out of my board, out of my boots, and my bindings are still in because I had my boots so loose. And later in the video, we're gonna see that I can prove that my boots are so loose, yet I still don't have heel lift. And I can turn better than most people. So that's one thing that we're gonna be learning about in this video. Oh, so dramatic. That used to be my intro. I stopped doing it. I don't know if I love it.
literally uncovered the secret of being a better snowboarder as well as preventing heel lift. So throughout this video, I'm gonna give you guys a nice detailed, nerdy, in-depth session. And throughout this video, I'm gonna teach you guys how to be a better snowboarder by utilizing one single joint in your body that I know you're not taking advantage of. So on that note, enough talking. Let's go vibe, let's go snowboard. Majority of the time when you're struggling with heel lift, it's not actually your equipment, it's the technique of how you're turning your snowboard. So what's really cool about that is if you can figure out the technique, prevent heel lift, sounds like a WW, right? Sounds like a win-win. So the first thing we're gonna dive into is understanding the technique of turning that is actually making you have heel lift. When you're making a toe side turn, you actually wanna take your shin and press it against the front of your boot, allowing you to create angulation. When you're pressing your shin against the front of your boot enough, you're actually gonna tilt your board. Now what's cool about that is you're closing the ankle joint, and the more you press your shin in, the more your board's gonna twist and the sharper turn you're gonna get. Now those kind of turns are actually super useful for trees, moguls, short radius turns, which is also really good for steep terrain, so super functional. Now, with that said, there's YouTubers out there that are saying to press a rock down in the ground, which is exactly the wrong thing to do, and that's significantly gonna increase bad habits as well as heel lift. Now,
okay, so just to address this, in my opinion, there's a more awesome way to turn your snowboard by pressing your shin to the front of the boot. Now here, I'm gonna demonstrate here in a second, the least awesome way to turn your snowboard. Now in the instructor world, they talk about using your ankles a lot, which I'm not the biggest fan of because I think about when we're utilizing your ankles in a wrong way, it's gonna cause the problem of heel lift, which we're gonna be talking about in a second. So, yes, I'm calling out, not by name, but I think there are some people out there who create YouTube videos that literally copy my video and change some words, but when they change words and there's a direct, if you take what they say in a literal form, it's actually gonna cause heel lift. So that's kind of why I said that, because there's a lot of people copying, mimicking, but ultimately not having 28 years of snowboard experience, education, taught thousands of people. So they tell you something, but they don't really understand the mechanics behind it, which ends up causing problems for you. And that drives me nuts. Like that is one of the biggest things that pisses me off most is like, we're all gonna make mistakes. Like I totally get that. But when you're telling people bad advice and it's gonna make their experience worse, it's gonna cause them to get hurt, it's gonna cause them to crash, cause them to have more frustration, then I am annoyed because my whole channel is dedicated to making people as awesome as possible. If somebody comes in and does this whole like, says a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense, that when you take it literal is actually inaccurate and actually causes more of a problem, then I get a little frustrated because like, now I'm like having to like, not necessarily contradict what they're saying, but like, I don't agree with what they're saying. There's a better way. And I just have a lot of experience in it. And at this point, like, yeah, I'm opinionated because I believe in what I believe in because I've had 28 years of experience coaching thousands of people. And there's some things that like, my opinion, it goes against a lot of stuff because a lot of people just say a lot of stuff that they just say. It's just words, right? So let's see what I'm talking about.
let me explain. If you're sitting in your car, or if you're walking, or you're standing around watching this video, and simply lift up your heel, and you're gonna open your ankle joint, and you're gonna pretend to squish a rock on the ground. What essentially you're doing is you're lifting your heel out of your...
Okay, now there's a big difference. Like, let's deep dive on this. Do this at home. Notice the difference. If I simply start to do what I'm doing here,
boot,
what you're gonna notice is this shin is vertical. That also means that you're creating an edge angle here, and the problem is your boot is gonna stay flat. Now, if your boot is flat, guess what? This is the heel lift that you're getting. All of this. Now, if you use my technique, what ends up happening is when you press your shin against the front of the boot, you actually take the boot with you. So let me pull this up into like big screen. If you have your boot I don't know how to do this, but if you have your boot and you press your shin against the front of the boot, well, guess what? The whole boot goes together, which means if this is the sole of the boot, it is parallel to the bottom of your foot. It moves together as one unit. So if my bottom of my boot is with my foot, guess what? There's no heel lift. Now, imagine this is your boot and you simply, we're gonna call this just my toes because my hands are, whatever. If I were to press my toe down and lift up my heel, look how much heel lift you get because the boot doesn't go with it. Versus if I went here in the technique of knee steering or the technique of shin against the front of the boot, you no longer have heel lift. And I'm gonna prove it here in a minute as we continue on.
Not creating a tilt in a positive way, you're creating a tilt in a very less functional way for a snowboard. I got a special announcement, and if you guys have been seeing this logo, this is my BENETEK logo. I'm dropping merch. Is literally live right now. You guys can go pick up the merch.
Holy cow, this is old. This is not the merch that I have. If you're looking for goggles, jackets, that stuff, check out shopbenetek.com. We can check it out here in a little bit. But I actually have goggles. Like, this video is a little bit older, so we're actually gonna skip the sponsored, which is a big shout out to me. That's awkward.
All right, guys, let's get back to the show. So what I've done is I've loosened the crap out of my boots. I've actually loosened the liner thing as well because I don't want to cheat. And I am going to do a one continuous shot so you know that I'm not fibbing it. So Sean is going to point down at my feet. We're going to show that my pants are rolled up. These things are loose. You can see everything under the sun, both of them.
Because a lot of people argue that you have heel lift because your boots are not tight enough. A lot of people argue is that the boots are too big. People argue that your equipment, the boots you have are not good, and that's why you get heel lift. So what I'm trying to demonstrate right here is, okay, what if my boots are so loose that people say, what if my boots are big and expanded and I can almost pop my foot out because they're so loose? Can I still achieve a incredible turn and not have heel lift if you use the shin to the front of the boot technique for toe side? Heel side is a little bit different, but you're still using the shin to demonstrate both the heel side, toe side turn, if that makes sense.
We're gonna do one continuous shot and we're gonna go snowboard and see if I'm full of shenanigans. Oh yeah, we're in. Oh man, let's go. Oh yeah, we're vibing. Switch.
So what I'm demonstrating here is as I'm riding, I still have incredible control out of my board, out of my boot. I can still ride switch, I can still ride regular, I can still do a lot of incredible things.
They're tight. I'm not falling out, I'm not slipping, I'm freaking.
And I wish I had an x-ray machine to show you the lack of heel lift, because you just gotta trust me, but there's literally no heel lift.
Jibbing and jabbing. I'm gonna try to catch some air. Let's see if I fall out of my boots. Woo! Okay, that was a little sketchy and that was switch. So now we're gonna slow it a little bit down and we're gonna see if I can actually create heel lift and see if you guys can see what it is. So if I press, oh, see how quick my board sporadically moves?
This is me lifting, like squishing that rock or pushing my toes down, allowing the heels to rise. That's what I'm demonstrating here to clarify.
I'm trying to squish a rock. I can't get the same performance out of that turn. My heels are literally about to fall out. If I unstrap my boot's already unstrapped, but if I loosen my bindings, I'm really curious to see what happens. So I'm gonna have Sean slow down a little bit. We're gonna loosen these. And now, can we be absolutely loose as a goose and still make turns? And then we're gonna do the bad technique versus the good technique. Good technique first. Okay. Oh yeah. A lot more squirrely, but I really gotta focus on the mechanics because I'm barely connected to my snowboard. But we're gonna slow down now. So I can still turn, right? We're gonna turn. It's harder. This is switch, by the way. Let's go regular. I'm still making turns. Okay. Now, I might try this. Let's see. Oh, you can literally pull your foot out
So
of
dramatic.
your boot if you have bad technique. So, the point I'm trying to get across is if you have proper technique, your snowboarding agility, the functionality is going to be 10 times better. But if you're opening that joint, meaning getting on your tippy toes, not awesome. Now, after that, we're going to dive into a couple techniques to make your carving better and to make turns.
Cool. Well, that's kind of that part of that video. There's more to it. If you want to, you can just search Tommy Bennett turning, or just type in Tommy Bennett heel lift. You'll be able to find that video. But that's like my perspective on heel lift. So that's going to be like 99% of the cases. Okay, that's just like, that's my thought. That's my thought. So I appreciate you guys vibing, hanging out. Let's go. How do you recover mentally after a crash? Because I crashed into a tree and recently due to an ice spot preventing me from stopping like braking. I would say like two big things. One, like in general, just across the board, whether this applies to this situation or not, is when it comes to an injury, is figure out what caused you to fall. So theoretically, icy is icy, right? So there's two ways to help prevent falling on ice. One is being able to identify that's ice and read the snow and the texture so that if you ever get in that situation again, you know that this is icy. Second, and that's gnarly, you crash into a tree. Second is like, okay, if I can identify that, now I can avoid those situations. That's number one. Like avoid the situation, read the terrain. Number two is trying to be in a body position that allows you what? Let's go. No question / my dude Vu with a $100 donation. The boy absolutely going spastic today on the live stream with a $100 donation. Are you serious, dude? This guy is an absolute legend. I appreciate you more than you know. And seriously, thank you. That's incredible. You literally are like helping so much, like just like so much, like helping pay rent, helping keep the dream alive, and like letting me thrive, dude. That's like insane. So I really appreciate that. I really do. I really appreciate that. So like as far as, and no question, this boy doesn't have a question. And then as far as like, oh, should we do some spins, by the way? Anybody donates, we're gonna do spins. We got spin here from our boy from earlier, Joe Gunn. You get a spin if he's still here, by the way. You get a chance, if you donate, you get a chance to win a sticker pack. Ah, missed it, dang it. The sticker's there, it landed right here. And with a $100 donation, we definitely got to give the boy a spin for sure. Yo, you win a sticker! All right, Vu. Let's go, bro. You want a sticker, dude. You want a sticker. I need to make some more stickers. I was actually thinking about doing a contest. If anybody here is a graphic designer or want to create some stickers, let me know. That could be really fun. We could chickadee chat. And then we got Jose Batista with a 10 gifted membership. Are you serious, Jose? What are you doing, bro? We're going to give the boy a spin for the gift as well. Let's go. Oh, yo, it will literally there's the no sticker, and then you went like here. That's an absolute buzz. Yo, appreciate what the freaking heavy hitting 10 gifted. We got 10 gifted on the membership. 10 memberships, 10 gifted memberships, and donations, and everything. You guys are freaking vibing today. Let's go. We also just got Vu with a 5 gifted memberships. Are you serious right now? Let's go. Everybody in the chat, if you just got a gift, please say thank you to the boys for hooking it up with a 5 gifted and the 10 gifted from Jose and the 5 with the Vu. Let's go. Ah, dang it. Dang it. Dang it. It's rigged tonight. It's absolutely rigged. There we go with the gifted. You guys are insane. Let's go. Jamie, what's up? SF. Hello from SF. Let's go. Definitely say thank you for the gifts. Let's go. Everyone's getting a freaking gift today. Let's go. Appreciate you guys hopping in, vibing, doing that stuff. So what are the questions we got? We can watch another video, get vibe, let's go, let's keep it rolling, let's keep the momentum going. How do we recover after a crash? Will, 1, identify the situation. Number 2 is go out there, and the sooner you go out there and just don't allow it to scare you. That's like, it's kind of hard, and I know this because like I broke my back when I was 17. I was paranoid that if I was a half inch over, I would have been paralyzed. So now I'm paranoid about snowboarding. So what I had to do is rebuild my confidence from like, I'm terrified to even like go fast, hit a mogul. So I've been there. And like what I had to do is just build my confidence slowly. I started in the beginner hill, just kind of got my turns in, started to go a little faster, a little bit more, and just kind of like exposure therapy type thing that helped a lot. And then like years later, I had busted my hip, got surgery, and I was determined. I'm not gonna be scared. No matter what, I'm not gonna be scared, and it was like a mindset. I just did not allow myself to be scared. And it was so weird because it was like, F this, I'm owning this, and I'm not allowing it, which is hard for sure. Like, I know that. There's like the gnarly dirt bike rider who he rode, fell, shattered his wrist, had gnarly surgeries, came back, he was racing, got his other arm caught in a wheel, shattered it again, both arms shattered. And he made a post on Instagram about that. Is like, somebody DM'd him like, hey man, how are you like mentally handling this, blah, blah. And he's just like, he was so adamant about just like, don't let the fear control you. And so then I took that into hip surgery. It's like, I hurt every day, but I'm not going to allow that to me to be scared. I do back sevens, I do flips and back sevens and like tricks. Like I still do that stuff because I'm not allowing my hip to like freak me the freak out, right? So I kind of just like the mindset of like, if you're already scared, you're gonna have to build up the confidence. If you're like, this is fresh, like just freaking, I'm not gonna allow it. It's so hard to explain, but it's like a mindset. Mark, just referring back to the heel lift thing, it's about getting the boot to move with the leg and not the ankle and the foot. There's a reason a snowboard boot doesn't flex. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's like moving together. Exactly. Hi, Tommy. Having issues carving on my heel side edge. Any suggestions? What are your thoughts on double posi stance? Would this help my heel? Okay, so with heel side carving, I think I have like a video on that somewhere. When it comes to like carving on your heel side edge, one thing to note is that you're trying to get your belly button to like sit back in a chair, allowing you to get that edge. Now, if you want to be even more carving, lift up all 10 of the toes at the same time. Most people struggle with carving because they have too much weight on one foot and they're causing a pivot. The goal is to slice the snow, so if you can lean back and lift up your toes, you're absolutely going to be able to carve. It's very doable. Very doable. Spartacus! Let's go! Keep it up. Been learning so much from your channel for the dream. Let's go. Are you serious? You're gonna get a spin and a $20 hype. Are you serious? I appreciate it so much, dude. Let's go with a spin of the wheel. And you get a free spin, so that means you didn't win, but you also didn't lose. Let's go again! And you get a free sticker. If you want to DM me on Instagram, I got some BENETEK stickers here that I can hook you up with. So I'll hook you up with some BENETEK stickers. I also got to make some more at some point. Let's see. So thank you so much for the freaking hype train, the $20. Let's go! You guys are freaking legends. Dang, another one. Durable, 100%. Well, appreciate the advice. Thank you so much. Got you, dude. Bidel, let's go. What's good? You know, just enjoying life and vibing. Tommy, please tell me, is the Warp Pig ride board suitable for large jumps? Personally, I haven't had experience on it, so I don't know the answer to that. So I'm not sure. I would honestly ask people in the chat if anybody has like an insight on it. I just have never rode that board, so I don't want to give you false information and just lie to you because that's useless. That doesn't help you. But you could also check out reviews online from like Angry Snowboarder or Board Archive. "22" stance. Yo, no way. Sorry, 28" stance. I doubt it. Let's go. You're crazy. What are you, oh, there we go. Whoa, no. What did I do? How do I control Z that? Yo, Spartacus, I was trying to highlight your message. I accidentally deleted it, but it's there. We love you, and I appreciate you, dude. My bad. What the heck? It says message deleted by Tommy Bennett. That is not right. Dude, I appreciate you. It's not intentional, bro. No hate. I fat fingered it. I was trying to like highlight it. Oh, dude, what a trash can. My bad. What a freaking tindy grabber. My girlfriend cannot even carve heel side, but can only carve toe side. Any advice? I was just kind of, my bad, dude. He's like, all good. I'm like, dude, what a freaking dingus. Okay, but we all saw the hype, right? How do I, yo, Jose, can you reinstate this? It says I could put you on timeout. I'm not gonna do that. I can report you. We're not gonna do that. How do I bring this back? It's so dumb. It won't let me reinstate that. It's so dumb. My bad. But yeah, shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll give you some stickers, Spartacus. And I'll check it. Just say like, oh, I won this from your Instagram account. Cool. Heel side carving is essentially, oh, here, should we talk about carving? Should we talk about carving? Should we talk about carving? Hold on, let me queue up like a carving video real quick. Jason! What up, dude? Thanks, Jose. Jose, try to help me too. Carving. This is how to carve your snowboard. Let's go. Jacob, you taught me a lot when I first started out, Tommy. Forever grateful. Let's go. All right. I actually didn't edit this video. Somebody else did. And I feel like this intro is a little long. Yeah. Don't do that. Do that. There we go. Look at that body position. Let's go. No, don't lean back. Do it back three. Look at that heel side carve.
The half pipe. Well, a carve essentially is when we allow our board to make a very thin slice in the snow.
Slice in the snow, you know. So we also got Jason with a $5 donation. Are you serious right now? What an absolute freaking legend. We're gonna be watching a video on how to carve, and we're gonna break it down just a little bit, and then I'm gonna get going, but stick to the end because we're not done yet. We're gonna drop the donation for the boy Jason. Let's go with a $5 donation. Let's go, dude. Dang it, didn't win anything. Dang it. Let's go, dude. I appreciate the donation. Good to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing good. Life's good. Appreciate you being back in here, my dude.
Another way to think about it is our nose of our board is going to be leading the way, and our
there we go. What up, internet? Come on.
Tail follows the exact same path. Now, the benefit of doing a carve is essentially we're able to change directions while minimizing.
Sorry, if you don't mind, I'm just going to skip this. This dude's talking. I love what he has to say, but I want to get into a little bit more examples of just heel side, toe side, just so that we have that. Here we go. Okay, so in this angle right here, you're going to see that out, as long as you can see my cursor right here at the bottom of the screen, you're going to notice this is a skidded turn. A skidded turn means that you're smearing peanut butter essentially on bread, and you can tell because there's like a lot of snow flying out and there's a wide path in the snow. Wide path, wide path. Now, notice the difference. There is less of a wide path. So in this body position, I can get away with carving because my belly button's here, my belly button's here, my tailbone is behind the heel side edge, and my weight is even between both of my feet. If you're struggling with doing a carve specifically on your heel side, it's for one of two reasons. You're not in an optimized body position here, nice and tall, knees bent, leaning over that heel side edge. Number two is you're creating a pivot movement. Okay, what I mean by that, we're just gonna use this phone as example. If I have my weight dead center, as if my phone is my snowboard, I can lean back and be definitively on an edge. But if I'm more centered, if I'm more forward, it's really easy for my board to pivot as if it's a windshield wiper. You know how it's like locked down here for the most part, and then it pivots around. Well, that's more of our skidded turn. So if you're creating a pivot, you're not carving. Okay, so if we're minimizing our pivot, that means we stop doing this movement and rather we just lean over the heel side, we're lifting up our toes, we're leaning, and we're trying to slice the snow as you see in this video. Okay, there was kind of more of a scarf, but we'll call it. Now this is going to be a bit, now, I don't know why my internet is being an absolute trash can. Okay, so that's like a very basic body position, okay? As we go here, skidded, kind of in a carve, okay? Now, this is kind of a skidded, but like, okay, so right here. Now, there's a carve. Notice that my belly button's over the tail, over the heels, and I lift up my toes. Beautiful. So now we're gonna go into another angle. Now watch this. Now, I'm actually tilted even more, but notice that my belly button is over the heel side edge. My toes are the top of my boots, which we could just infer, as well as my belly button is between the bindings equally, and I'm just slicing the snow. Slicing, leaving a pencil thin slice in the snow, which is a bit hard to tell with this angle / the snow conditions, but here's the slice, literally slice. That is the goal on a heel side, okay? Does that all make sense? So if you're struggling with heel side, it's because you're creating too much pivot. Okay, I'm trying to think. Okay, another good video that you could look up is if you just type in Tommy Bennett carve versus skidded, you're going to get this one. Carve turn. 131,000 views from a month ago. Okay, we're getting some views. This video right here is actually pretty good. I'm pretty pumped on this carving one. Oh yeah, there's that ad spot. Look at this. Also, by the way, I'm giving away a free ski pass. ShopBenetek.com, and you follow our Instagram. You like our posts, you can literally win a season's pass or up to $800 reimbursed on your season's pass. If you already have pass, I'll give you cash. I'll Venmo you $800. By the way, so if you're looking for that, we also ShopBenetek.com. We are doing we got goggles, we got jackets, we got all sorts of fantastic stuff. We also have some stuff coming in the near future. Boom. Ad spot. Beautiful. Thanks, Tommy. Okay. So this whole video right here is absolutely pretty incredible because I discuss literally the difference between skid and carving, and it's pretty nerdy. It's pretty good. I think this is a good video. I'm pretty stoked on it. So check out that video if you're still confused on the subject matter. Next, Danielle, hello. What is your profile picture? Is it a basketball court? Do you have any advice on snowboard boots? I'm thinking of buying a pair, and I'd like some good quality ones without breaking the bank. I would go to a snowboard shop or an outlet store and see if you can find something like that. But my number one recommendation when it comes to boots is finding boots that are going to be comfortable. If they're not comfortable and you bought them and you saved money, you're gonna be pissed. It's not gonna be sick. So if you could theoretically find some boots that feel good, fit good, you're gonna be very stoked on that. That's definitely something I would recommend. Recommend for sure. Yeah, I agree with Jose. Because one of the things, you can adapt to a board, you can adapt to boots. Sorry, you can adapt to boards. You can adapt to board, you can adapt to bindings. Boots you can adapt to, but if they're painful and they suck. What's your thoughts on union step-in bindings? I'm not a step-in type of rider. I think it's dope Union is making them. I've had this discussion about... we've had this discussion in the past on this channel, and I don't mind talking about it again. I think step-ons are an incredible thing for the market, and I think Burton, in general, gets a lot of hate for a lot of things, but I also feel like I don't always agree with it because this guy just also dropped like another $50 freaking donation. What? A $50 donation. This dude is going insane. We're going to give him another spin here in a second. Boo, let's go. And so when it comes to like the step-ons, Burton invests like 5 years of research and development or whatever, 3 to 5 years of research and development. And they're trying to solve a problem. A beginner snowboarder has a miserable time strapping in and standing up. How do we make the barrier to entry of snowboarding a little bit easier? Therefore, making more snowboarders fall in love, have a good time, have a great time, have snowboarders just increase the amount of snowboarders because the barrier to entry is less. So I think like there's a lot of good things out of that company that is pretty cool. I also want to talk about one other thing, but first, we got some absolute heavy hitters in the chat today. We're gonna give Vu with another $50 donation an absolute spin to win. Even if he wins, I need to hook up the boy with some stickers for sure. Because I think you won on the last one, right? Yo, didn't win, dang it. Also, we got Jose with a 10 gifted membership over on the YouTubular. Let's go, you're a freaking legend, dude. What are you talking about? Jose, let's go! Dude, 10 gifted, are you serious? Another? And if you just got a gift, definitely hype up the boy for sure. Dang it, it was the exact same one. Jose with a spin and a 10 gifted to the boy. Dude, that's freaking sick. That's freaking sick. Isaac, how do I keep up with them? Instead of keeping a slight edge with open turns, should I commit to snowboarding with a flat base more of the time? I have a phobia of catching an edge on flat base. Two big things with that is like, I can ride flat base, but if I'm like increasing speed, I rarely am on flat base because you can be like on a 3-degree edge angle. That means you're gonna create friction on the edge and that friction equals grip. So if I'm going fast, I'm talking 60, 70 miles an hour. If I'm going fast, then my edge is engaged, I'm in control. Number one. Number two, if you're a flat base and you have bad body positions, you're gonna catch an edge, you're gonna fall, it's gonna be bad. So for example, and this is just like a rule that everyone needs to know in the chat and every snowboarder needs to know. Wherever my lead shoulder is, my board wants to follow. So imagine I'm going 80 miles an hour, flat base down the run, and I break my ankle strap. So imagine I'm here. If my lead shoulder is open 45 degrees, where do you think my board wants to go as I'm traveling 80 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour? My board is going to want to turn. If I turn, I'm gonna catch an edge, fall, and die. It's gonna be miserable. So I like, if I'm on an edge, you can kind of get away with having a little bit of grip and the shoulder is gonna be open a little bit. You can kind of get away with it, not recommended. What is recommended is if you are flat base, is make sure your lead shoulder, make sure your lead shoulder, hip, knee, or like lead shoulder, hip, and board are all pointed in the same direction. Because if you're in the same direction, you're never gonna have a problem. That's how you go fast, that's how you stay alive. Let's go. Hi Tommy, I had a earlier comment that was hidden by a membership giveaway by Jose. I was asking about flat base on flat runs. But okay, so I just answered yours. Does that make sense? I just went ham on that. Does that make sense? So flat base, I would do that. Now on flat runs, I would also use the same principle. If I'm on a flat run, I want to be on a gentle 3-degree edge. I can be on flat base, and if you are, do that technique that I talked about, being in a balanced position, lead shoulder pointed where you're going. Does that make sense, Isaac? Does that make sense? Ja, what up? I'm a new snowboarder and I've gone 2 times and I'm already addicted. Yes, let's go. I've spent 100 plus on rentals already, but I'm torn I feel like I should go ahead and buy a board. Should I buy or wait a season? Okay, so what I would do is, like, if you're addicted, I would buy a board because you want to get used to it. If you go rent 3 more times, you spent $400 or $500. If you can, I would buy a board. Okay, I would buy a board. Now, you can go longer if you're looking for a board that's more stable, especially at high speeds. A shorter board is going to be more maneuverable, but not good at low speed. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to sit in the middle where I can go maneuverable and manage speed, because the better you get, the faster you're going to go, the more you want to explore, the more cool things you're going to do, whether that's riding trees, moguls, steeps, going from greens to blues to black runs. You want a board that sits in the middle that can handle speed, but is also easy to maneuver. So that's kind of my thought. Crispy, when I was skateboarding, I would always cruise goofy foot, but I would do any sort. Wouldn't do any sort of park, or you would do any sort of park regular. When I'm on the slopes, I ride regular, but I find myself power in the back leg. Should I switch? Okay, here's the thing, Crispy. If you could theoretically, this is like kind of an advantage that you have that most people don't. If you can skateboard regular or goofy, when you skate goofy, that means you're perceiving the world goofy. Then if you're feeling like, oh, I want to ride regular snowboarding, it's actually really cool because you're training your mind to go both ways and be really comfortable with both, and understanding that there almost becomes no regular and goofy because you're going to be good at both. That's a great thing. Like, I'm jealous, okay? One other thing to consider is I would put your strong foot in the front of the board. Because on a snowboard, when you're making your turns, theoretically, you want 60% of your weight over your lead foot, and that foot is going to be your power foot. What ends up happening is if you put your power foot in the back, then you're naturally going to want to be in the back seat, which is counterproductive for snowboarding. Now, skateboarding, I've skateboarded a bunch and blah, blah. Oh no, Crispy, dude, that's lame. You should be able to zoom back after that. But in skateboarding, like I used to skate and I could do like switch heel flips and nollie flips and tray flips, and like I used to like skate a lot, catch my kick flips, so like that. But when you're like, imagine that like the whole time you're on your skateboard and you're in a manual position, but you're trying to ride bowls. Well, like you can make the bowls, but it's not gonna be that good. But imagine you're in the bowls and you're in your normal stance and you can power a little bit more on that the front truck, and that truck will at least like be able to help guide you in a bowl if you're pumping like a capsule or something. So having that way in the front foot would apply the same in snowboarding as that example, if that makes sense. Yeah. When you choose the snowboard length based on your weight, do you consider your normal weight when you're nude or with your full gear? I usually just think about it as like maybe just a slightly over nude. Like I would go in between, like, oh, I got gear on and I don't. Most people judge it based on like the normal weight of your body. So I think there might be like whatever 5-8 pound discrepancy, but like when there's like a range on your board, it's not really that precise. So I'll just go off of like, I would more suggest going off just your body weight, because I assume that's what a lot of companies are talking about. But that's actually a really great question. Will, what up, dog? I wear 11 size shoes. Should I buy a board that's 156 wide or a 157? I'm just wondering because at the moment I'm on a rental board because it's my first season. Well, Will, pumped to have you here. I would buy the wide. What ends up happening is, imagine that your board is like this. And if you had a perfect board that is wide, the goal is to have your toes not hang over too much. The reason why is as you make a turn, notice that my toes get closer to a theoretical ground. But imagine that my toes were here. Notice that I would almost go like 15, 20 degrees and I would touch the snow. And if your toes touch the snow, you're going to catch, spin out, and crash. So you want to have as much clearance from your toes to actually like hitting the snow. So like here's my board, for example. and let's just say like my boots go to here. Look how far I could go. If this is flat, I could go like all the way up to like this edge angle without the toes touching the snow. So if I wanted to do like the craziest, gnarliest carving, I have no problem. So I would go wide, 100%. Crispy, if you don't mind me asking, where do you reside? There are great hills where you are, or do you travel for snowboarding? So I live up in Summit County, so in Colorado. So I'm between Breckenridge, Keystone, and Copper. I'm literally like, they're like here, here, and here. And like, I'm like kind of here. So Copper's 15 minutes from me. Keystone's about 20 minutes from me. Brecken's about 25 minutes from me. So like, I'm right there. And it's expensive where I live, but I'm also paying for convenience. I drive 15 minutes to the mountain, right? So it's like, it's expensive. I don't own a house. I would love to one day. I gotta grind way harder, way more, way longer to be able to accomplish that goal. And that is the goal. Eventually, it's just to own a house and put my little foot down and not have to rent. The scariest thing about renting up here is like, you just don't know. When your landlord's like, we're gonna make it an Airbnb, get out. And you're like, and then when you leave your rental, then you have to pay like so much more, and you're probably paying so much for so little, and you just get absolutely boned. It's so annoying. Greg, what up, dog? I came from skateboarding and wakeboarding background. Let's go. Going on my third snowboard trip ever. What's the best binding angles to help with balance and turning and not looking to do crazy jumps? So in the beginning of this video, I would love for you to actually like go back, because I spent about 45 minutes discussing stance in depth, answering exactly your question. And so if you don't mind, I would say, yeah, just pop back there. We go ham on it. And it's better for me to refer you to that versus me spending the next 45 minutes, because a lot of people have already heard it. So I would do that. But as far as the stance, there's definitely like going to be a lot of answers in there. So if you don't mind, I think that's going to be like the best bang for your buck and your time and your energy. Bob, what's your favorite snowboard boot? I've got wide Hobbit feet, and K2 contains more pain feet by the end of the day. I'm a big fan of the Burton Photon boots, but I hear they're narrow and they might make them in a wide now, but I love those boots. Those have been like my favorite forever. Daniel, what up? Hey, Tommy, thanks for such great content. I have been learning a lot watching your channel. Keep it up. Let's go. Brian, thanks for all you do. Extruded versus centered bases and waxing. Great idea. I have an extruded base. Would hot waxing make a difference? So extruded and centered bases, two big things that you got to consider. One, extruded base is going to be a cheaper material, which is going to be good if you're trying to spend like $300 on a board instead of $600. The downside is that it doesn't retain wax as well, so you're gonna have to wax it more often, and you're gonna have to wax it like every day, every other day. So I would definitely wax that more often. So I would do that. Eventually, like the goal for you, to be honest, is like never buy an extruded board again. Save up and buy a centered base. It does two big things. It's gonna be way faster just in general. So when you're on catwalks, flat sections, you're gonna have less of an issue. And two, I find them to be a lot more of a harder base material, which means it's gonna be more durable. So if you accidentally hit a rock, it's gonna be fine. And I'll show you an example. Like here's this board right here. I was going like 40 miles an hour, absolutely hit a rock and smashed my board into a rock. And I hit this at 40, 50 miles an hour and absolutely hit it and flipped and that. If this was in a extruded base, this would have been torn from like here and everything. But I hit it like fast, and this is all the damage it did, which I think is pretty incredible. And this board is like a really high performance fancy board. I freaking love this board. But because I had a bit of a nicer board, it will actually last longer and probably handle that a bit better. So that's kind of my thought. And so like extruded, just so everybody knows, like an extruded is a type of base where you take like the PTEX material and you compress it together, and then it's like this. Then when you have a centered base, the PTEX material is like chemically combined so that it becomes like one unit. And so then now it's like one solidified rock that's gonna be a lot firmer. and that means that that rock is going to be harder to actually like penetrate. So when you have a extruded base, it's going to be cheaper, which is also a benefit because you can buy more boards for that same dollar, but you're going to have to wax more often. That's from my experience. Step-ons are up in the air. Thoughts? Step-ons, we kind of talked about this briefly a little bit ago. Step-ons are a great thing for somebody who's trying to minimize the barrier to entry of snowboarding, somebody who maybe has some back problems and can't spend all that time down there, because like, yes, you still have to go down to unstrap or unhook when it comes to like step-ins, but it's gonna be a lot like easier, simple type thing. Additionally, it's just like quick, easy. You don't have to like sit down. You can just like strap in or step in and go, which is pretty cool. I personally teach people how to strap in standing up, so you don't get your butt wet and stuff. But I think that there's a great place in the market for them. It's not for me. Brian, hopefully that answers your question. And again, I'm not trying to like say you made a bad decision or anything. I think that's kind of how I would go about addressing those two things and understanding the pros and the cons of each of those, if that makes sense. All right, dudes. Well, I think I'm out of here. I got a freaking headache. Just so you guys know, I have a massive light right here. You can see it's like in my eyes. And then I have a massive light here. And this stuff like gives me a headache. We've been on for an hour and 45 minutes. I think we're doing pretty good. But there's a lot of good useful information there. A big shout out to Jose for all the gifted. Big shout out to Vu. And big shout out to everyone who's been in here giving the hyping us up. Where is that? Hold on. There you go. Spartacus with the $20 and Joe with everything. So I appreciate everybody coming in. I do these live streams usually on Tuesday, but I literally had no power and my Wi-Fi was out, so I couldn't make it yesterday. But I'll be back here next week on Tuesday, ideally doing a couple more of these. And appreciate you guys. Love you all. And if you guys are looking for goggles, gloves, jackets, check out shopbenetek.com, which is going to be my company. We are also doing a free ski pass, by the way, so make sure you go check that out. Okay, we're doing a free ski pass. You come to the website, you click it, you go to our Instagram. We're doing this. Also, we have really good stuff. The quality is amazing. We've been vibing. People have been really, really stoked on everything. So if you're interested in getting any of the gear, check out shopbenetek.com. Big things to come. By the way, I got some crazy stuff about to happen, and it's gonna be really fun, really exciting. So, yeah. On that note, love y'all. Appreciate it, Jose, and I appreciate all of you guys. Cool. I'm out. Love y'all. Bye.